Wow, thank you, Nicole. That was an outstanding introduction. I was like, who is this guy she's talking about? I appreciate it. And I'm excited to dive in. You know, we have been hearing about the dark funnel for a long time, and it's a relatively new concept, and people are trying to get their heads around, what is it, how do we use it, and what's the difference it's going to make in our pipeline this year. And the tricky part about the dark funnel is tracking and measuring ROI. And it's, to cut to the chase, the dark funnel has a lot to do with brand, which is sort of a dirty word here in 2023. And, not something that a lot of people are talking about. And so hopefully, this presentation will give you some new ideas and new ways to think about where your potential customers are. And so, oh, great. Okay. Wow. How did that happen? Thank you to whoever did that. So we're going to talk about the dark funnel, what it is, if you're not super familiar with it, and how you could potentially use it this year to achieve your goals from a pipeline perspective. And it's really about aligning with the way people buy these days. I won't take you down memory lane, but the buying process has changed dramatically over the last 10 or 15 years. And a lot of companies are still following the go-to-market process that's aligned with just a behavior that just doesn't exist anymore. And we want to make sure that we're staying ahead of the game, especially from a revenue operations perspective, because you come to it from a way that you can actually impact and engage with this dark funnel and really make a huge difference for the company. So just a bit about Tenbound and where I'm coming from. We've been really focused on the pipeline and revenue generation aspect of go-to-market for the last 7 years. And we provide insights and intelligence on how to do that in a very practical way. So initially working, on the sales development side of pipeline development, but now moving to, thank you, whoever changed that. They always put an E in my name. It's totally fine. But now we're really focusing on what does it take to grow predictable pipeline and revenue in the go-to-market aspects of mainly software companies. And you could look at it from the big three that we see out there. There's the people aspect, there's the process aspect, and there's the sales technology aspect. And you can have two of the three and be in really good shape, or you can have one of the three and be struggling, or even all three. But there's always room for improvement in all those different aspects. And so we provide those content, events, and insights into how to really be able to achieve that. And we built up a community over the last few years of people who are passionate about pipeline and revenue, and we're super excited about it. And as Nicole mentioned, we have a conference coming up that's focused on pipeline and revenue generation from a leadership perspective on March 22nd. So I hope everybody can make it there. We've got some great content coming up for that one. So when I look at the dark funnel, I try to think about it that the way that we buy has changed completely over the last few years. And you see a lot of companies out there following the same go-to-market trajectory that we've been using for a long time, and it's getting diminishing results. And especially now in the for me, it looks like a recession, but it's if it's not a recession, it's a very hard time for the tech industry. And you can see that especially with the SDRs and the AEs, they're kind of the first to go when people start to have issues. And if you kind of double click into it, it's a lot of companies are going to market with the same metrics, the same patterns as they've been using from 20 years ago, and things have changed dramatically. So when we think about the dark funnel, there's this universe of people out there that are trying to solve problems, and there's no limit on the number of business problems that people are trying to solve. And I bet if you get off this webinar, you've got 10 different things that you're trying to solve. And in that process, they're seeking information and intelligence on how to best solve those problems. And so, as you know, probably as we get off of this, we're going to start reaching out and Googling and looking for information about how to solve our problems. And they seek information in a completely different way. And so the main thing when you think about it is, one, there's a different pattern for different levels of the organization, obviously. So I'm going to simplify this as much as possible. But a decision maker at an organization has a different pattern of seeking information and finding information than an influencer on the deal or an end user, obviously. And so this is going to change for your vertical or for the different market that you're going after, but they each have different ways that they're going about trying to find information. And so in the past, when I first started, it was a long time ago, sellers held a lot of the information. So in other words, you were kind of misinformed, or you just didn't have a lot of information about what was out there in the marketplace. And you really needed to go through sellers for especially more complex, solutions in order to get information. And the knowledge that you kept and through the years, and as you became more sophisticated in this, was it locked up in your head. And then at 65, you retired, and hopefully you passed down some of this information to the next salesperson that came in, or the next marketer that came in. But a lot of it was very unstructured, and it's the same on the way that you research information for making buyer decisions. So now it's completely turned, and I'm sure that nobody on the call, hasn't heard the Gartner and the Forrester research on the fact that buyers have all the information now. They've got too much information, and they are overloaded actually with information, and they're making 80% or whatever it is of the decision making without even involving a salesperson. And really, if you've taken a demo in the last couple of years, you realize within the first couple minutes, if the seller's not adding value, understanding your business, and really bridging the gap between the problem that you have and what you're trying to accomplish, they're not adding value. There's actually been a rise in platforms that just run demos automatically, AI generated demos, because at that point the salesperson is adding so little value that they can just be eliminated. So the seller has to add value in order to be able to have a reason to be on the call at this point. And then the other thing that's really important is that the tribal knowledge is now captured, shared. You can understand what's working and what's not on sales calls. The information from the buyer side is being captured in their wiki and the different ways of capturing how they do things. And so now we have even more information about how the whole process starts. And it's a unique opportunity for RevOps, for the people that are on this call, because, and this is a graphic from Dynamico. I've got the link there. But RevOps sits in the middle of the process between the seller and the buyer. And they have a big influence. You have a big influence on how you connect the information and how you align with the buyer journey in content and campaigns, tech integration, the CRM, sales enablement. You're really in the center of this transformation that's happening. And if you think about how you buy today, and then you think about the marketing process that you have in place, sometimes it's a lot different. And you've got one marketing campaign going for the standard trackable metrics that are happening, and so you're tracking those conversion rates and you're understanding what's working and what's not. But then at the same time, you go and you do something completely different in your own buying process, and it's not necessarily aligned with the way that you go to market. So if you think about it, and this is a very simplified, version of the dark funnel, but you'll go talk to your friends, at your kid's basketball game. You turn over, that guy's in tech, or she's, works for one of the big vendors. What do you recommend, as far as trying to solve this issue that I have? Then you'll go to a community, and maybe ask a question like, what are the top three that you see out there? You'll start to read industry related content, not necessarily the content put out by the vendors, but just third party resources. You'll go to review sites, and start reading reviews and trying to whittle it down. You go to the events that are in your industry and start talking to people. And you may even have, subterfuge conversations happening in WhatsApp or on Slack, asking, particular individuals who are experts, what do they recommend? So that's what you're doing in order to start looking at this. And then it's not even until you start to enter the orbit of the company that you start to become, trackable. So then you start downloading research papers, gated content, giving them your email address, reading the website, shortlisting vendors, and then finally at the end of this process, at the 80%, you're willing to take a demo and talk to somebody. So, and by the way, if somebody's on like a live stream and you've got questions, or I just don't want this to be like a whole just me talking. If you've got questions or anything, just pop them in the chat, and I'd love to make this more interactive. So you can track a lot of this right now. So obviously, like I said, first you go to Google, or now it's maybe Bing, so you can, or Chat GPT or whatever it is, but you can start to do direct searches. You can start to see where they're coming in from organic searches. There's all the paid mechanisms, display ads, paying SDRs, either your own in-house SDRs or outsourcing your SDRs. And you can start to track in some way, shape, or form how people are finding out about you and how they're coming in. But when we're talking about the dark funnel, that's now, it could be less than 50% of the activity. There's also new technologies that are coming out to be able to help you to track it better, which includes intent data. If you're not familiar with how intent data works, you've got to get with the times here, because it's absolutely critical. Since we do everything online, there's certain behaviors and initiations that are happening online that can actually be tracked. So the review sites can connect you with people that are potentially interested. There's a whole universe of companies that are account based, and they can tag the person from specific accounts and let you know when they start to bubble up. And there's online publishers who just own a ton of online publications and can actually let you know when people are reading up on your particular subject matter. So there are ways to get in front of this. And there's also ways, if you're in a process where them, where you can get engagement readouts on your email, or have them do particular scorecards, and really give you a lot of rich information, get their email address, and understand if they're more interested in what you're solving. And I'll give you a few examples of this. Obviously, we're talking to Signals today. Signals I'm a customer of Signals. I'm in there every day. Their chat bot is on my website, and they're directly tied to my CRM. And so when there's somebody from one of those companies that self-identify, they start downloading research or looking at papers and becoming more and more interested, especially if I've got an active deal cycle. Boom, I know that there's intent there. And that's, so critical to being able to understand, what they're doing out there, even if it's not directly tied to the individual. Email, like I mentioned, email engagement. So if you're not using something like this, there's a lot of different solutions out there, but I can tell when someone's opening the email, downloading a paper, how many times they've looked at it, and things like that. So even if they're still in the dark funnel and I don't know if they're actually interested or whatever, at least I can see some of the behavior based on what they're most interested in. And then I mentioned scorecards. So one of the best ways that I can find out if someone's interested in pipeline generation, they're interested in sales development, and they want to potentially look at some of our paid products, they start doing a scorecard, and I get all this rich information and understanding of how far along they are in the process. And then it's a very easy way to reach out and see if they'd be interested in having a conversation. So those are just a few of the examples that are very trackable. The difficult part with the dark funnel is we don't have a lot of ability, and I'm essentially like a sales tech analyst at this point, and so I haven't heard of a lot of companies being able to crack this code yet. And so I'll give you some manual ways to be able to track and potentially activate the dark funnel, because all of those examples that I gave at the beginning of word of mouth and joining communities and reading industry related content and going to events and, being a raving fan of your product, there's sort of a divider in between there where it's very hard to get that into the CRM and then be able to demonstrate ROI. And that's where it comes down to the importance of brand and why it's important to address this, even if you can't directly tie an ROI to every activity that you're doing, like with the other ones. So if you think about, okay, I know that all these conversations are out there happening, but how can I actually influence those? So think about this for your particular industry. So there's niche communities for everything that's out there. You're probably in about 10 different ones. Some are more active than others, but there's all these niche communities that are popping up that are very, very focused. So, if you're not in the tech industry, if you're selling like spark plugs or something like that, there's probably a niche community out there that's trying to solve those particular problems in your industry. There's probably an industry newsletter that's used by most of the top players to get the insights and the intelligence that they need to be able to do their job better. There's brand collaborations where that this brand is way ahead of you. They might be in a slightly different vertical market, but you could potentially work with them to do some content or run a different activity. There's all the review sites that you're not using that you might not be particular. There's review sites for general software use, and then there's review sites for every single niche that's out there that you could potentially integrate. There's events that you could potentially sponsor, get a booth, and get a speaking spot to ensure that the attendees know that you're one of the key players and that you have thought leadership in this area, and you're available to demonstrate how you're different than the other solutions that are out there. And then there's content collaborations where you could potentially work with influencers within your industry to make sure that they know that you exist, that you're on the radar screen, and you're one of the top 3 potential solutions for people that are looking for ways to solve that particular problem. So there's a lot of different ways. I'll give you 3 quick takeaways that you can use from this. Without going into too much detail, I'll put my email address if you want to talk about this more. But number 1, enlist your sales team or your SDR team as a research team. And even, some people are, as the traditional metrics have declined, they've sort of repositioned their SDR team to really become a research team to try to bridge this gap. So require some questions on the demo. And I know that salespeople aren't super excited about having requirements, but this is super, super important because of how hard it is to bridge the gap here. So just require a few questions. It could be ask the sales rep to describe the buyer journey for the person that they're talking to. It's the classic question. How did you find out about us? Were you referred? What's your information gathering process in looking at different solutions like this? And tie that back to the opportunity in your CRM so that you can run reporting on it. And you can start to see patterns in where the person is engaging with you in the dark funnel. The next one is you have to create a strategy to stand out. And we gather up a market map that's just particular to the pipeline and revenue generation. There's another market map for sales technology. There's another market map for MarTech. It seems like every VC firm is coming out with these incredible market maps. And what's really important here is that you have to be able to stand out and have a unique value proposition. And you have to be able to communicate that in order to even break into the top 3 that your customers will initially put you in to be able to evaluate the solution. So what is going to be your standout, breakout, unique value proposition that you put into the various parts of the dark funnel? The last quick takeaway is creating your tribe of raving fans. So this is so important that there has to be people in the dark funnel right now who absolutely love you. They love what you do, and they're willing to, co-create content. They're willing to go on webinars. They're willing to talk about the amazing experience because you've enabled them to do that. So you really have to identify your raving fans, track them within your CRM, and stay close, bring them into the family so that they are the center of your demand creation, your conversion, and your fulfillment of their demand, the hero's journey or the journey of the customer. And I'll give you one quick example here in the last 30 seconds is Tenbound. Tenbound is a perfect example of operating within the dark funnel and being able to use that in a way that's authentic for our community, but also lucrative for our customers. And so we've gathered this highly engaged community of 40,000 members who are passionate about pipeline and revenue generation. We put out constantly high quality content, research reports, etc. And then we offer sponsorship opportunities to sales technology vendors to be able to engage with our audience. There's no pitching, there's no sales pitch. It's just the engagement, getting the brand in front of this audience, and then bringing them into the funnel when they're ready to solve that particular issue. And so if they don't know you, they can't flow you, okay? So your brand is unknown. It's a sea of all these other solutions. You have to be able to engage the community. And that's what we do here at Tenbound with our sales tech partners. So any questions? What are your thoughts? I mean, I would love to hear, how you've utilized the dark funnel and the success that you're having, or, tools and technologies that I've missed, so that we don't have to continuously track this manually. Hit me up in the comments, or DM me directly on my contact information on the screen. And I want to thank Signals for giving me this opportunity to take a bunch of stuff that's in my head and hopefully make something valuable for you to use. Thank you.